Gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for clicking on this video. Thanks for following. Thanks for subscribing. All this stuff, all the normal YouTube stuff. I appreciate it. You guys are the best. And over the last couple of weeks, we've been putting stuff together and working on repairing the rot in the back of the GSX in front of the rear wheels, the rocker covers, and yeah, I can see why I didn't want to do this job. And it's just a pain, guys. It's tough, all right? It's doable. It's doable, but it's not fun. You get rust in your face and your eyes. You get crap all over you every single day. It's taken quite a while. A lot of tracing out shapes on cardboard and cutting it out of steel, and a lot of very light tack welds and grinding, and we're getting there. But as you can see, we're getting just smacked with a big rainstorm for today and tomorrow. So I have 2 days where I'm stuck inside. I can't be outside dropping parts off. I can't be outside pulling the rest of the subframe out. All that work has to be on pause for a little bit. But there's one thing we can do. So guys, I reorganized my whole workspace. I got it all set up completely differently because we have some really major projects that are gonna come up very soon. They're creeping up on us quick, so I'm trying to hurry up and knock this stuff out as fast as I can. But I pulled the side skirts off of the car, and when I was looking at them, the driver's side and the passenger side, there's some pretty significant digs and scratches and like chunks missing out of some parts. They're not huge chunks, like just little chunks missing out, you know? Kind of how our hood was back when we painted that. There's just things it hit things. It looks like it got road rashed over the edge of a curb at one point in its life. And I want them to look nice and crispy when we put them back in the car. I want to fix all that. I don't want to have those parts sitting downstairs and just wait until I'm completely done with the body and then have to start all this stuff. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna run into our local O'Reilly's Auto Parts store, and that's why I'm sitting out here. I personally prefer O'Reilly's because I have a hub in my area. It's the biggest store, the O'Reilly's store in the area, and it ships out all the stuff that you find at these smaller stores. We're gonna go up to that one. That's not this one, but whew, the rain just picked up again. Anyways, there's some things inside of here we're gonna pick up. We're gonna spend a few bucks. We're gonna grab some stuff to repair the side skirts, get those pits and scratches and digs all filled back in, make it look good again, because I want it to be nice and flush. We're gonna get it all set up in primer by the end of the night, and hopefully you guys find this interesting, because I don't really like body work. I never really did, but now that I'm starting to do it more and more often, I can kind of see why people like doing it so much. It's actually super satisfying when you get to the end of a project and you look at your work and it's just beautiful. So we're gonna go use some sandpaper, some blocks. I'll show you all the stuff that I'm gonna pick up from here, and we're gonna get some plastic filler. It's basically plastic filler. It's like an epoxy, I guess. So I'll show you guys what you can use from your local O'Reilly's at home, in your basement, in your driveway, in your backyard, wherever you wanna work. And you can fix your side skirts or small plastic pieces on your car. If your bumper's messed up, this works on it. And we're gonna make this stuff look new again. I'm gonna drive through this to the big hub store. It's terrible out right now, guys, so let's get on the road. It's gonna take me a few extra minutes to get there. This O'Reilly's that we have is fantastic, by the way. It's freaking huge. Nicest guys, too. But anyway, let's drive. Outside. I picked up a flexible sander. This is a 3x11 inch little sander. It was like under 10 bucks. A couple of spreaders. We got a couple small ones, a big one. Let me zoom you guys out some. We got some paper to go with the sander. This is a whole kit. Gives you a 9x11 sheet of 180 all the way up to 1500, which is fantastic. We also picked ourselves up this stuff right here. This is the big part. The U-Pole 7061 flexible high density filler. It says it's ideal for plastics, it's easy to sand, yada yada yada. This stuff I've used before and it's fantastic. Can looks like it's been through a little bit of hell, but that's all right. Now that we have what we need, we're gonna head back to the house and we're gonna start cleaning out some of these scratches and grooves and get these side skirts looking pretty again. I'm gonna show you guys everything that I have to do through this whole thing. Well, boys, we've made it back from O'Reilly's. We're down here in the shop space getting ready to tackle this project. So here's the parts. We have the driver's side cap that goes on in front of the front wheels here, and this is the one that looks pretty bad. You can see there's some scarring right here, some pretty big chunks, digs basically ground out of this thing. There's some chips right here along the edges, a lot of little spots and grind marks, it looks like, right here. it just looks like it's hit a couple of things, or it's been dragged across a couple of things. The front of this, it's also pretty rough. You can see there's tons of little spots on here. It's just, it's not in the best shape. The inside doesn't really matter, but it is, it's like plastic, fiberglass. I think it's plastic, to be honest with you. So this is, feels like plastic. I've cut these up and it cuts just like plastic. You can do a little test if you have a knife, and you should be able to just scratch a little chunk off of this. Let me see, I'll come on the inside here. Yeah, so this feels like just regular old plastic. So you're definitely going to want to use something that's made for plastics. Like this stuff right here says it's ideal for it, it's flexible. And Bondo, if you put Bondo on this part and you go to smack it back on the car with these clips, it may tweak or bend a little bit. I mean, you can see if I hold you steady here, that bends. It's got some flex in it, and you don't want to put something in there that's going to be so solid it's not going to move with this part. So what we're going to do is wash this part off. Obviously, first we got to remove all these little fasteners and clips and stuff on here. Get this little plug piece put out. These are the little clips right here for the side skirts. You can find them on eBay, and you can find them on STM Tuned, I'm pretty sure. You can buy these anywhere. I have a whole kit that I bought off Amazon of these. I think it was like 20 bucks. It gave me like 2,000 pieces. Has a few of these in there. They have like a little foam ring on the bottom of them, and this just protects the paint, I guess, when they snap in, or helps lock them in, and it doesn't hurt the car when you put it on the metal. So we're going to save all our little parts in that little dish over there. We're going to pull these little clips off. These are what bolt to the car. There's square openings in the bottom of the body where these push into and hold everything down. Oh, this side skirt over here, let's take a quick look at that. There's just scarring. I mean, if you look close, it's not super deep. Your fingernail catches it. Some of these are worse than others. And this whole area right here looks like it gets smashed from junk flying off the front wheel. So this is the rear end, and you can see all these ridges facing forward. There's like a little dip. Everything facing forward, eventually the road dust and all the crap kicking off those front tires, it just sands this back edge down. It chews all the paint off of it, and then you're just left with bare plastic. So some of these edges are a little ugly. Not to worry. These bolt holes got rust crap all over them. We're gonna go ahead and clean this stuff all up. I'm gonna wash these parts real fast, and then we're gonna see what we're working with, where the actual problems are. All right, we got this stuff all washed off, degreased. You can see there's some pretty good scars right there. This piece, I mean, besides from these little spots where it mounts sticking out, the insides are fine on this one. This one, I just found a crack right here. So there's a big chunk that's split. We're gonna fix that. This whole scar right here, it doesn't look like it's too bad until we get to like, I don't know, halfway down it. Then it starts getting real deep from here down. We're gonna fix this up too. There's a bunch of little scars that go across this way, and I found on the inside of this, one of the parts where you mount the clip, this little ear right here, this is broken. So it's like flapping in the breeze. Now, I mean, you guys can join that stuff back up whatever way you want. There's a ton of different methods out there, a ton of different videos on YouTube. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sand out as many of these cracks as I can, the ones that show after I initially sand them. I'm going to go ahead and use that filler and fill it in there, and we're going to go from there. But first, before we start sanding, I want to start repairing these parts. So this broken clip mount spot we're going to fix, and this crack right here we're also going to fix, because we don't want it to get worse. We want to join it back together, make it look good. And to do that, I have this nice little kit right here of stuff. No, it's not the aluminum weld rods. Set these back over here on the shelf. I have this little Harbor Freight, cheap Harbor Freight plastic welding gun. This thing works great, and it has a thermostatic unit attached to it. Let me get that out of there. But this little guy right here, you plug it in, you give it about 10 minutes to get hot. You take some screen, you go over the little spot right here, cut out a little rectangle around it, and you use this to melt this piece back together, and the screen holds it in place. You kind of get it hot, and you get the metal hot, and you embed this metal into the brake. I think that plastic welder is like 10 bucks or 15 bucks. It's nothing more. It can't be more than a $20 bill, guys. It's Harbor Freight. Can't be more than a $20 bill. Okay, so we have our iron heating up. We've got ourselves a nice little crack right here. First thing you want to do is go through and make sure that you can push it back together nice and flush. If you look closely at it, I can get that thing to snap right into place. You can kind of hear audibly when I push down on it. kind of crunches back in. That's a good thing. Now what we're going to do is take this metal wire here, it's like screen. We're going to cut a little section out of it that fits over the entire crack. It doesn't have to go too far over it. I'm probably going to go, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch, nice strip all the way down. And we're going to get this thing heated up, start melting that screen in. Right, so I've got my little patch put in here just to bury the screen piece down in here just a little bit. Now what we're going to do is take one of these little plastic rods from the kit, and we are going to melt some of this over top of it just to strengthen this, give it a little bit more meat, so that way that screen doesn't push back out or peel out or flake or flex or anything. We're not going to use any of the hardener stuff, the body filler stuff over here. We're just going to use plastic. We're going to weld this back together with plastic, essentially melting it over, make a nice little clean cap over the top of it. Let the gun heat up for a couple more minutes, or the tool, whatever. And we're probably just going to go about the width of this over. So it's going to be about that wide on the top and about that wide on the bottom. We're going to fill the whole thing in and then let it cool off. Then we can flip it over to the other side and basically repair the crack from the other side with the filler. So let's get after it. All right, that's knocked out. We've got our nice little cap put on here. It's nice and cool now. And we can look at the other side here. We got it close, but there's still just a little gap there. It's a little raised on one side, but that's fine. We've added so much material on the back side of this, it's not going to hurt it if we grind some of this stuff down. So we'll be able to sand this out and get it close, put a little filler across there, and we'll be all set. The best thing about having one of these plastic welders is, if you have an older car like me, one of my buddies has that really nice 89 240 SX, the red one, and he had some plastic pieces that had all the clips. I can't remember what panel it was, but he had a panel, I think it was for the interior around the hatch, and all the clips broke all these same little spots. So we plastic welded all these back together so we didn't have to go on the hunt and try to find a replacement used part or another OEM part from someplace. And it's still holding up perfectly fine. So if you guys have interior parts or exterior parts that are, you know, the fastening spot where you put the clips in is busted, this is definitely the way to go. So for this one, we're going to go across the back of it, right across the top here, and we're going to put a very small piece of this same screen in, something like this right here, and we're just going to get that melted into place and then put a tiny little cap on that. We're not going to make it really raised or anything. We just want a little cap on it so that way it can hold, you know, the clip in and be structurally sound. So let's do that next. Our little tiny repair for this clip is fixed. You guys can see it right there, and it's no longer wobbly and loose. Try to wiggle it there. It moves it a little, it's plastic after all, but she's good to go, and we can still put a factory clip in. If we compare this one to this one next to it, they're still close. It's still got that pinch point in the front to hold the clip in, so I'm happy with that. Now that we have those two small repairs knocked out, we can flip this thing back around here. Let's take a look at it. And now we have to start addressing all these little issues that we have here, all these little digs. So first thing I'm going to do is take some sandpaper, and I'm going to work on this part first and then work my way down these splits and these cracks and digs. We're going to have to sand a lot of this stuff out. Again, all these mounting points where there's surface rust, I'm going to sand that off. Probably going to sand this off with some 380 or 400 grit sandpaper, try to get some of this rust off, the surface rust. Then we have to go over here, sand this little area down so it's closer. Maybe put a little channel in next to it, this high spot on the top and the low spot on the bottom. We'll probably bring the top down and then maybe a little bit of filler right there to smooth that out so we can hide it. We're going to go over these areas where the lips are sticking out, all these little pieces that are bad. We're just going to try to sand this stuff out and get rid of as many of these scratches just from sanding. We're going to do this all by hand, and with one tool. I have a, where is it? Oh, there it is. So I have a little sander here, which is perfect for the job. It's a little 2-inch sander. So this you can use to kind of blend in the areas. It's a little air sander. Do it by hand if you guys don't have an air compressor or a tool. It's not going to hurt anything. Hell, you can even take this thing right here that we picked up and go over the majority of like the long parts. This is what we're going to use to form this stuff when we get to it. But all the spots that need it, we're gonna go ahead, clean off the area around it, get the paint off of it, and just show these side skirts some love and try to get some of these chips and digs and stuff smoothed out. Boys, this little tool right here, if you guys have an air compressor, this little random orbital 2-inch sander is absolutely amazing. So we have our part all sanded down. I decided to not spot sand it, I guess. There's so many scratches. You guys can see right here, there's digs and scrapes in all these parts. I just took the clear off and most of the color off the bottom of this because it was pretty bad. This part was already down to the red primer, but it is just very, very pitted. So what we're gonna do is mix up some of this U-pole. We're gonna mix it up with a wooden stirring stick, put a little bit on here, and we are just gonna skim coat all these parts that have, well, not all these parts, but all these 2 parts with all these scratches. We're just gonna basically skim over all these pits. It's really bad on this one. You guys can see. So I'm gonna stick you over my shoulder, off to the side, and we're gonna get this all fixed up. Alright boys, it's the next day. I let this stuff set up overnight. As you can see, all the patching on here, it's all solidified. It's pretty nasty looking right now, but that's good. This stuff hardens up real quick. This cap, all the little pits. If I missed anything, like I already see a spot that I missed right here, this edge, I'm gonna have to go back over and add some more to it. That U-Pol stuff, it hardens wicked fast, so go a little lighter on the hardener. I'd say for the glob that I put down on this thing yesterday, it's like, you know, a little puddle like that big, do less than like maybe a pea size of that hardener. And I filled in a lot of the stuff on here. Now what we're gonna do is grab some 180 and I'm gonna use this little tool and just knock down some of the excess that we have here. Sanded down a lot of stuff. There's some pinholes here that I circled out. I used a window marker and didn't realize I had one of these. Thought all I had was like Harbor Freight paint markers, but there's a couple of little spots marked with the green paint here, and I'm gonna go ahead and skim coat these very, very lightly. I just wiped them all down with a microfiber towel that's sitting right there with some water. I sanded this whole thing down, and there's some spots on this too. I didn't mark them, but you can see them. Right up here in the front, there's a bunch of little pits. I gotta fill these, and I didn't sand this completely down. It's kind of hard to see once you start sanding. The dust kind of hides these little spots, but there's a spot right there, a couple of pinholes. I'm gonna cut another chunk of ABS plastic off the big piece that I have and use a little tiny bit more of that U-Pol, and we're gonna go ahead and fill these spots in, sand them out tomorrow. Hopefully by then we'll be ready to sand this whole thing back down. Once it's nice and smooth, we're gonna lay down some sandable filler primer, and I have a bunch of that over here someplace. Yeah, right here. This stuff right here, the Rust-Oleum Automotive Primer Filler Primer. This stuff is high build, it works fantastic. It fills in little tiny imperfections, so you don't have to have this thing completely perfect. If there's some small light pits, you can go ahead and clean those off. And just spray 2 coats of primer on it, sand it down nice and smooth by hand with 600, and then you're finally ready to lay down your color. Well boys, we're back down here. It's been a few days since I worked on this. We have our side skirt here and our cap over in the corner. We're wet sanding 400 grit by hand. I was gonna go ahead and paint this thing, but I looked over it and I found a bunch of little imperfections that I wasn't happy with. You can see there's like a little tiny little notch right there and a couple little scratches. So some advice, if you guys are gonna do this, I'd recommend you guys put some light black spray down as a guide coat. I used the gray primer and it kind of hides a lot of the scratches, so noob mistake there. But so far I've repaired a ton of the damage that was on this thing, and it's starting to look better and better and better every other pass. It's messy, but that's what you get. I've got this crap on everything. It's splattered all over my toolbox from using that thing right there. Kind of sucks, but whatever. So we may have to bust out some more of the U-POL 7061 plastic auto body filler and fill in any more imperfections that we see. One more coat of primer and this thing should be ready for final paint. Okay guys, so I started doing this job, and it's very messy because I didn't really do a very good job at filling these holes in. I uncovered a ton. So the little cracks and scrapes and stuff that I found, they're not cracks, they're just little digs and grooves and dents and stuff. Let's see. There's one right there. There's one right there. There is, let's see, a little guy right there. A scratch right here. Then this side, there's a bunch that I didn't see. I don't know why or how I missed them. Scratch. A little dent right there. There's quite a few little imperfections. So I did switch back over to my little 2-inch air tool right there and some 180, and I did the whole thing over again. I said screw it. Brought it right back down to basically plastic and primer from the factory. Now what I'm going to do is go through these little spots here, and I'm going to reapply some of the U-POL 7061. And this stuff, if you use the air tools and you're wet sanding, it is on everything down here. Spattered my cabinets, spattered my powder coat oven, got my toolbox. That was from the other day when I was doing it. I've made an utter mess down here. Now what I'm going to do is mix up a small batch of this stuff again, get my little putty spreader out, and we're just going to do some really, really thin layer of filler on all these little spots here, because I want this to look as close to perfect as I can do. And I figured, what the hell's the sense of making a video on it if, you know, it's not going to be a video of, hey, this is how you make a old crappy part look kind of crappy still, but not so crappy. No, I want it to look good. So again, I'm not going to focus too much on everything that goes under the car, this lip right here. I just want everything that's on the outside from this bend all the way around to the top side. So yeah, there's a lot of work left to be done, but I'm going to go ahead, mix up some filler, and get cracking. Got this thing nice and smooth. I'm going to use some of this U-POL anti-rust filler primer, and we're going to put a couple of coats on this part right here, our side skirt for the driver's side. Hopefully we can put enough on there to fill in the last little tiny bit of sand imperfections, and we'll have a nice clean surface that we can sand down further. So I'm going to spray some of this on. I had this sitting in a hot bath of water for a little while, and we're going to spray this on real quick, let it dry, and then we're going to come back over it. We've sanded it to 400 grit. Now we're going to bring it up to 600 once this stuff dries. I'm going to do 2 coats, a light one and a secondary like medium coat. After that, 600 grit sand, and then we're going to get ready to lay down some color. Well there boys, we went out today and we did some fun stuff down in Rensselaer. We pulled an engine out of a Nissan 240, an S13. We got an SR20 pulled out, and now I'm back here. So we're going to continue the side skirts. Basically, I got this thing done with the U-POL. One nice thick coat on here. I did a light coat, then a nice thick coat. And because it's plastic, you can see there's these rough spots right here. They look rough to the touch. It's where like the sandpaper dug in and pulled some of the plastic off. Don't worry about that. Now what we're going to do is, you can do this by hand, or you can use orbital sander or polisher or whatever you got. I'm using this. This is our Bauer random orbital polisher sander combo thing from Harbor Freight, and some 600 grit. I turned this bad boy on to speed 2 or 3, and I carefully am going over this. And as you can see, I started this already. I went over this little section of lighter gray that you can see here, and it is just perfectly smooth. So there's some very, very light circle scratches in here. We're gonna go back over this with the 800 afterwards and get it a little smoother, just because it's plastic. I'm probably gonna go 600 dry and then probably 800 wet. And we're gonna let it dry afterwards. Then we're gonna lay some color down. But first, we gotta get this whole thing sanded down nice and carefully. Low speed on that. We're gonna hit all these straight, flat surfaces and carefully work the edges here, these corners and the curves, because you can burn right through your primer and make an ugly spot. Well, boys, it's been a few days since I've been down here. Haven't really done any work on this. Had some electrical gremlins in the Ford I had to take care of, and some, what was it? We did lower ball joints also. That was not fun, but it's all set now. So I'm back on this. There's a couple of spots I still have to sand that it looks like is slightly rough on the bottom. So I'm gonna hit these all with my little 2-inch sander over here on the table, the little Central Pneumatic guy. Again, if you guys have access to a compressor, this right here, this thing is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm sure they make a smaller regulator. I think they do actually have like a little baby one. I think I'm gonna grab that because this thing kind of turns the tool into like a really long tool. I'd like it to be a little shorter, so I'll probably pick up one of those, but it definitely helps with compressor runtime, having the compressor kick on every, 5 minutes, 5 to 8 minutes when you're sitting down here sanding. I like to set this tool right, I think around like 40 to 60 PSI, so it doesn't go nuts, and it allows me to, be careful. But I gotta sand this thing down just a bit and get it nice and smooth, and then we're gonna start cleaning it off with our alcohol, and finally putting some of our single stage color match paint on, and getting this project knocked out. We just went over this thing with 600 grit, and then sanded basically everything down that was looking any kind of rough, any little raised spots. So far, the only issue that I found is this crack that we repaired right here. Let me see if I can show you. You can see there's a little tiny split right there. It's very small. The inside of it is nice and sealed up, and it's structurally sound. Now that I got this whole thing sanded and cleaned and wiped down with alcohol, I really don't want to have to bust out more of that filler and fill that in and sand it and get dust all over it again. So I'm going to call that okay. That's on the bottom side. We're going to start laying our first coat of paint. I'm going to hit this with an air gun real quick, make sure there's no more little pieces of fuzz or anything on it. And then I got my paint sitting in the sink over there. It's actually sitting under the hot water in the faucet right now. It's just been running on it for the last 10-15 minutes or so. Getting ready, because when the cans are nice and hot, they spray real easy. The paint goes on nice. We're going to do 3 coats altogether. We're gonna go a real light mist coat over this just to get some paint on the part. Then we're gonna go back through and do another light coat over the top of that. And then finally, we're gonna hit it for the 3rd time with like a medium coat. So 2 light ones, and then a 3rd one that's a little bit heavier. So probably twice the spray of what you do on your first coat and your second coat. We're gonna do a nice even thick coat at the end. And basically coat 1 gets on here and dries, and it acts as kind of like a glue, I guess you could call it. So you paint the part with a light mist, and then the paint that you stick on afterwards, it really sticks to it better. It dries quick. It looks nice. That way we don't have any issues or any flaking or anything. We're just going to let it bond out. So this is all 600 scratch. Let's go ahead and throw some paint on it, boys. I'm excited to finally get this done. Well, boys, it's been a long one. We've gone from a part that looks like this. It's all old, crusty, beaten up by road rash and sand. We sanded it all out. This is a little dirty still. I gotta wipe it back down, but this is almost ready to be painted. To this, we've got a nice shiny part. The paint went on really well. There are a couple tiny blemishes. I'm gonna go over this thing and buff it now. I'm gonna use the 3 different parts. I have a coarse, a medium, and a polish that I'm going to throw on there. I've covered that before when we did the hood video. I'll link that in the description if you guys want to follow that. But I've got the other side skirt sitting here. I got to start work on this. This one came out fantastic. The paint is pretty close. This one's obviously extremely dull, but we compare the colors. They're not bad. They're not really far off at all. It's just, you know, this is 23 years old and that's not now. So I'd say it came out all right. We sanded it down. We filled it with that U-POL 7061, which I said that name probably 45 times in this video. I'm happy with where this came out. The bottom looks a heck of a lot better than the bottom over here. You can see the sand really does chew up the bottom of these fins that face forward. This one's got a chunk missing out of her, unfortunately, so I don't know what I'm going to do there. I may have to just leave it or repair it with some fiberglass. I'm not quite sure yet. I'll probably end up buying a fiberglass kit and repairing it. But anyways, guys, I'm going to end it off here. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram. Follow us over on TikTok. We've been posting a lot of stuff everywhere. The rust repair work is coming along great. We're almost finished with that, so stay tuned for that video, because you're going to need some of these skills that you picked up sanding and painting to translate over there on the body. It's going to be fun. But anyways, guys, I appreciate you watching. If you're still here, thanks a lot. Thanks to all you new subscribers. Thanks to everybody who watched our last upload, our last full one where we put the subframe in the GSX. We are so close to getting that thing completely finished. I'm taking it to the alignment shop on Monday. That's in 3 more days, and they're going to fix the rear end, button up all the alignment, straighten out the wheels and all that fun stuff. So I'm excited, boys. I can't wait to drive again. Hopefully we can have this whole car finished in the back end, all the rust repair done, the side skirts back on the car before the first snow flies. So take care, guys. We'll see you in the next one.